guys, and welcome back to another episode of the ADH Dads. I'm your host, CJ,
I'm JJ.
and we're talking about, I don't know, what are we talking about today, JJ?
Well, we could just let the listeners know that we've been talking quite a bit before we hit record here, and yeah, we got a lot going on in our worlds. It is a busy time of life.
It is, man. Yeah, we just almost talked for about an hour about all the drama in our lives. We should have hit record back then, but here we are.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
sometimes you need to center yourself before you get into the process of trying to, deliver something to, your audience. And I think that was one of the big things for me is that I need to deliver, a little bit of like understanding of where I'm at, because there's definitely a lot of thoughts through this last week.
same here, man. It's been a little rough here. Yeah, it's just been busy, busy, busy. I haven't had a lot of time to put into my wife. It's just been go, go, go and shuttle the kids here, there. We're in cheerleading, taekwondo right now, singing, gymnastics, after school programs. So, I mean, buddy, I'm sitting in my car 4 hours a day just shuttling kids around Los Angeles traffic. It can be burdensome on the mind and the psyche, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Man, that makes me think about so much stuff. Like I'm trying to get kiddo, to do some things like you guys are doing a lot for your kids, which is awesome as much as it's draining. But yeah, one of the things that I tried to do is also see what it would look like for kiddo to go to like Taekwondo class. And I took him to a place that I'd never been. It's very well loved around here. But it's also not designed for neurodiverse kids. And man, we got into this
Yeah.
dojo, and there were multiple classes going on, and kids were all in their gis, looking all like proper and whatnot. And they said, yeah, first timers, they just kind of join the class and they get a belt. So Cohen's wearing his normal garb and this belt, and then he's standing at the back of the class, and everybody's doing the hiya and yes sir and yelling stuff, and I could see just like the fear in his eyes just show up,
Yeah.
and he looks at me and he's like waving me over. I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy, I'm not allowed to come out on the mat. And then he just like the master comes over to him and kneels down, super sweet guy, and starts talking to Cohen. And that's when when somebody addresses you and you're in your fear state, sometimes that just brings on the waterworks. And the poor
Yeah.
kid, he comes over to me, and I lifted him up over this little separator, and he was like, oh, this place is not for me, which I thought that's super brave of him to actually say, like,
Yeah.
this isn't for me. That was a really powerful moment, and I was proud of him in that. And so, what I did is I I bought some sparring mitts, and I just said, all right, let's just you and me, buddy, you and me. So he starts hitting him and stuff, and he's got this grin on his face. I'm like, yeah, this is the starting point that I should have done. I should have
Yeah.
been a little bit smarter about that. So yeah, we got to enjoy that a little bit. But yeah, man, this last week was crazy. So I feel for you, brother. It's like when everything is happening, and your thoughts don't get a chance to really kind of process everything.
Yeah, we did the Taekwondo too, and we're gonna start week 4 here with it. We had a little bit of difficulty getting Naomi to, get motivated to do that too. And she was kind of in the same way the first class or two, hands in her mouth, very shy. She wasn't participating in the hi-yahs or the yes sirs. She was just very quiet and in the back, kept looking at us with her fingers in her mouth. And this last round, the third week, she was participating in the hi-yahs and the yes sirs and was really getting into it, and I hope that she does like it, because I thought that it was like really good with the mindset and discipline, and it's like no nonsense. You have to stand like a leader with your arms to your sides and straight, and be engaged with the yes sirs. And I really like that. And our class is for neurodivergent kids. So it's like letting off, a jar full of crickets and then trying to get them back inside the jar, buddy. They are just all over the place. It takes 3 instructors to like teach them, wrangle them, correct their behavior, and they just kind of walk around in this rotating, clockwork of a circle and get all these kids. But we were really hoping that she would be into it. In this program we got set up through the regional center, it was free for the first 6 weeks. And that's how they get you, right?
Nice.
It's like
Yeah, exactly.
after the 6 weeks, they're like, well, the regional center will reimburse you, but you have to pay out of pocket. And it's like, well, how much is it out of pocket? It's $2,500 for all 3 kids. Oh, okay. Wow, that's more than half of our rent. Okay, just to
Bait
put
and
these
switch.
kids. Yeah, so I don't know if we'll be continuing after 6 months, JJ. Maybe we'll just get some sparring pads and I'll work
There
with
you
them in
go.
the backyard because yeah, it was man $2,500. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
I think one of the things that I really do appreciate about those programs is it is hard for, I think our neurodiverse kids to recognize it, and for us, even as adults to recognize it sometimes. Is like you go there, there's certain expectations for your behavior, but ultimately it's a program, or at least it should be a program, I can't speak for everybody, designed for you to understand and master yourself and learn to enjoy and appreciate the power that you have from within and how you exert that, and of course how you can defend yourself and stuff too. And I think that's the big hump that's really hard for a lot of people to get over, neurodiverse especially. That's really outside of the comfort zone, and if you have
Yeah,
neurodiversity, like getting outside of your comfort zone, that's a tall ask for anybody, especially a kiddo with neurodiversity. So I understand our kids hesitancy, because we're going into a place and we've never been told to do this, stand like this, put your hands to the sides and stuff. And what
go
they're
let that
trying
kid
to
hit
do,
you. Just go let
yeah.
that kid hit you,
And what they,
and
what
go hit
they're
him
trying to
back.
do, what they're trying to do is like, we're setting you up, just like, like Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi. We're setting yourself up to understand your body, to understand yourself, to understand your balance and your ability to respond to situations, whatever those might be. So then you can really identify all that power within for you to succeed. But when it comes to the beginning, especially the beginning phase, is like, you're not accomplishing the breaking through the board with your fist right away. You're not doing all those super exciting moments that everybody's just like, that's what you see, on the advertisement is the big breakthroughs and stuff. So I get it. I get it why it's hard for kids. And when Cohen said this isn't the right place for me, he was absolutely right. That's not the right place for him right at that moment. It might be
Yeah,
that eventually he'd be like, okay, I get it so well that I can go in and I can shine, but it's hard to go from 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% sometimes when
yeah.
your head is already talking you out of it. So yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate that he had that wherewithal to communicate that with you. Naomi's been expressing it too, but it's like when we ask her, she's like, I don't really like it, and I've kind of like tried to find ins to motivate her. You sent me this scene to show her of the Wednesday Addams show where she's kicking some pilgrim's butt in a diner, and I showed her that, and she was all into it because she's like all into Wednesday right now, and so she's like, "Yeah, I want to kick boys' butt." It's like, I think you have your why maybe wrong, but I'm glad that you're getting motivated at least.
Oh man, but yeah. So
But
I,
yeah,
I, I
man.
just yeah, I wanted to kind of talk about. Well, we'll see if we get to it. You and I were good at kind of going off on our tangents, but my last week here was very much a little bit of an overwhelm, and sometimes when I experience overwhelm, I start to think of the why, and sometimes that the why I'm feeling overwhelmed, it very much I can find myself in the trap of pointing the finger at other things and the reason why
Mm,
I'm struggling. Like, I had some work come to me, and it was more of a workload than I was really capable of doing within a reasonable 40-hour work week. So I was feeling stressed. I was like, okay, this didn't happen, and now therefore I'm stuck with the responsibility of getting this all done when I can't do that in this amount of time. Somebody didn't prioritize, somebody didn't really estimate properly, and so now I'm left with this great amount of work, and I'm feeling stressed, and I don't want to deal with this and my emotions. I don't want to get all this other stuff in my head, because I'm just going to get myself worked up, and that's not healthy. But how can I not, because of this, because of that? And so I was just in a state of constant struggle this week, and I wanted to kind of escape from it, but at the same time I had to face it. That was a tough week for me.
yeah, buddy. I feel you too, man. Sometimes life can overwhelm us, and we're left trying to pick up the pieces rather than take care of ourselves. And I feel like I've been there too, man. I feel like Wife has been in a lupus flare up, so I've been running around doing a lot and especially dedicating to the kids while I leave wife at home to take care of the house stuff, and I'm running around in my car. So I've been like playing this victim mindset of like, I don't have any time for me, because I just been
Yeah.
driving everybody around, and though that is true, and I do need to carve off some time for myself. It's just a season, and I know that it will pass and roll over. But it is hard when you're in those seasons, man, and you don't
Mhm.
see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're just in it. So, I mean, what do we do when we're feeling overwhelmed like that? How do you de-stress? What's something that brings you some peace?
Well,
I never
one
know
thing
how to answer that question when I'm asked in it. So
yeah.
I'm kind of
Well,
curious to see what you're going to say.
to me, it really depends on what I'm facing at the moment. So it sometimes, honestly, like I said to the guys fairly recently that you know, I think we were talking about contentment and doing your best. And what does that look like? I think one guy simply said, and he was not in any way pointing the finger at anybody else and saying, if you don't do it this exact way, then you're not doing your best. But he said, if I choose to sit down and watch TV instead of getting my exercise in, I'm definitely not doing my best. And I said, I completely understand that. Here's one thing that I do that helps me become my best self. I found out since moving here to Utah that once a month or maybe twice a month, depending, going to the movies by myself, just watching something that has a character in it that's making decisions based on a script that has nothing to do with any sort of influenced by myself is great. I could just sit back and witness and not have any sort of emotional commitment to the outcome. That's been a huge de-stressor for me. I shouldn't just say de-stressor. It's been in some ways life-giving to me because I can go and
Yeah.
I'm in the theater. This is a completely foreign environment to my regular day to day, and I have only one commitment: sit through this for 2 hours without peeing usually, and I can manage that. I can usually manage it. Sometimes I get a little too much soda, but that's okay. So that's been a
It's
big
the
help for
old
me.
man bodies that we're growing into, man. Those bladders just aren't what they used to be.
Yeah, with this program with Coach Ray, with all the protein I'm taking, any of my kidneys are like, "Oh, you gotta stop." Yeah, so I definitely find that that's one of my ways to really kind of just not necessarily avoid and escape my problems, but really to allow myself an opportunity to step away from stress to gain some sort of perspective and understanding of myself and just simply not think about myself and think about everything.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. So
I
that's
don't
one
think
thing
so
for
either,
me.
man. A lot of men give themselves crap when they want to just relax or,
Yep.
have a moment like that. And they think that it's unproductive or not motivating enough for the other, tribe or whatever. But I think that, like, whatever your thing is, man, like, be okay with it, like, give
Hmm.
yourself the grace to, like, enjoy it, participate in it, and recuperate from the rest of life.
Yep. Yeah, so that's kind of been a big one for me is like, doing it and knowing why I'm doing it, understanding the value in it. That's a big one. So that can mean a whole lot of things. And I think that's why I'm leaving it so open-ended. I know I gave an example, but like leaving it so open-ended. And the other thing, when I am feeling that stress and I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I know that I'm not the only participant in that, a big thing for me, especially when we talk about like a victim mindset, is I'm not choosing to be a victim anytime. I don't want to be the victim. So what does that look like? How do I avoid the trap of being in the victim mindset? Well, I don't want to avoid responsibility. If I'm passing off everything to everybody else and the reason why I'm feeling this way, I'm avoiding responsibility. Well, I am responsible for my reactions. I am responsible for, the steps forward. So if I find myself in the cycle of this victim mindset, well, then I think that's an indication like, hey, there's opportunities there that you're missing. You are a successful human being up to this point in your life. If you recognize that, like, man, I probably have had a similar experience that I've overcome in the past than to this one. And I can either choose to pass off all that responsibility to somebody else, and now I'm just the victim of everything everybody else is doing, or I could say, all right, there's probably opportunity in this, like the work thing. Um, I was not in a good space, but I think I addressed something with the team, and I said, hey, I noticed this is happening in this particular project. I do have some frustrations with it, which I'm trying to work through. But I also think the conversation could be like, if this happens, that sounds a lot like scope creep. And we're going to have to, in some ways, pay for that, sacrifice in some way for that. Should we be doing that? Is that fair for us? Is that fair for our clients? What is the opportunity that we're not seeing here, or that we missed this time, that we don't have to do next time? Because the victim will just pass all that responsibility on to somebody else. And then when it comes back again, they're trying to pass that responsibility on to somebody else. So they're actually taking a responsibility over something not working. They're not changing. They're not taking action. And that's a big problem that I've had in the past, where I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to sit in my anger. I'm going to sit in my frustration, and I'm going to offer zero solutions. And now I am going to, unintentionally, but intentionally at the same time, predict the next time, because it's going to happen.
Yeah, man, that's a big red flag for me. Is how I know I'm garnishing that victim mindset, as that I start displacing the blame on other people. I start thinking thoughts like, oh, why isn't this person giving me this, or why doesn't this person do this? How many times do I need to tell the kids to do this thing? I start gathering all of this information as like it's an attack on me, rather than the expectations of life, because the one thing that's always at the bottom line that I know that I've crossed the threshold is the lights, man. If I start going around the house, why are the lights on in here? How many times have I said to turn off the lights? I know that's like one of the first stages of like, I'm getting in there, because my expectations are way too high, like these 6-year-olds and these 3-year-olds are not turning off the damn lights, JJ. It's a me thing. I need to just be okay with it and turn off the damn lights, but that's like usually one of the first things is, oh, why are these people doing this to me? Or why aren't these people doing these things for me? And then before I spiral into this whole thing where I probably have a meltdown and temper tantrum of my expectations of other people. So, that expectations is like my big red flag of like, are we venturing over into victim mentality over here? What are your expectations for the day, for this moment, for this task?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big one too, is to also keep yourself a little bit, keep the word grace in mind. Practice grace with yourself and with the people in that contractual expectation agreement. Like, let's say you do have work and it's based on hourly rate or something like that. Okay, the contract should be pretty clear about that stuff for work. When it comes to relationships, it becomes a little bit more gray area, but that's okay. That should be okay, right? Like, how could we possibly hold everybody to a certain contract? And does it even make sense to say, okay, how do we create a total fair and equal treatment across the board between us? Like, one kid is going to say, I want 5 minutes with the toy. And the other kid says, I want 5 minutes with the toy after that. Okay, yeah, but those 5 minutes are still not going to look exactly the same from one kid to the next. So it's just not going to be equal as we might expect it to be. So we have to give some grace to it. And I think that's where a lot of times we get into the trap of me. I didn't get what I deserved in that situation because that person got what they wanted. Like, then we're creating those comparisons that are never going to succeed in our minds. We're always going to pass that responsibility onto somebody else to manage how we're supposed to be feeling, how we're supposed to respond. But the truth is we respond to things differently all the time. So, we can't we can't create justice within relationships like that. That's just going to set up, those premeditated resentments, those expectations. And that's something that's going to fail.
Well, how do we help our kids with this mentality? Because kids fall into this real easy, right? Kids always feel like they're the victim, especially I got 3 of them over here, JJ, and they're always like, they did this, she did this. I don't feel like I'm treated fair because of this, so it's a different thing when we're talking about adults that can maybe separate those expectations and have the, awareness to critically think about that. But how do we help our kids, and how do we help our neurodivergent kids where that executive function doesn't maybe connect them to what a victim mindset is or how to get out of it?
You had a great example many episodes ago where you talked about this conversation. Felt like a breakthrough moment with Naomi, where you said, okay, in these situations, and you'll have to explain it better in response, but if this happens, you can come to me for this and stuff. And then she actively took commitment to the idea of a certain action. So I mean, of course, with our relationships with other adults, I think we can probably get a little bit deeper with, obviously we don't want to have the I'm going to call it the anti-victim mindset, where we're saying, don't do that. You're basically being the victim hater, say you shouldn't treat me like that, or the way you're thinking about it is stupid, or I don't want to deal with you because you're just so draining, or what, I don't know. Whatever it is like the anti-victim mindset. That's basically invalidation, right? So
Yeah,
one of the
apathy.
things, yeah, instead of being anti-validating, we can find a way to validate without resisting and putting up a fight with somebody. It doesn't mean you're enabling. It just means you recognize there's an emotional component to this. Somebody is feeling something in response to this, and that's a first part of it. Is validation with our kids. I think the next thing is really kind of like explore that curiosity piece that we hark on all the time on here, and I'm very proud of us for kind of keeping curiosity in mind. Is when you show curiosity and you start asking questions to our kids, that gives them the opportunity to take over, take control, take power. What does that mean? That means that they're probably actively pursuing an opportunity for action in this process, which, if we go back to earlier, what I was saying is when you don't take responsibility, you're trying to take inaction as well. You're trying to avoid action and the
It is
opportunity
taking action. It's just
yes.
not taking action in your
Right.
action.
Right. So then you can listen to those opportunities where they commit to a possible action. So I could do this, or I think this, and maybe if I did this, when that starts to come out, you see the gears turning, you see the ball rolling, you see an opportunity, which again, that's what I said earlier, is you listen for moments of opportunity. If
Yeah.
something's not going my way, that's a chance for opportunity. And even kids, even though they have so few years on their lives, have probably experienced something similar that they're relating to, they're comparing this to, and they're finding a method of success that they experienced either by observing or actually participating in directly. And that's where that victim mindset, even in children, can start to be addressed and overcome.
Yeah, man. I think we really mistake empathy as like we need to agree with this person. We need to accept
Yeah.
everything about this person's point of view. And I think it's a really big miss. My wife and I were actually just kind of quote unquote disagreeing on this, the other day. Sometimes my wife can fall into that mindset of, well, I don't want to validate you because then it sounds like I agree with you. And I'm like, well, I just want to be validated. I just want to be heard,
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with me. I just want you to understand my feelings, And I think a lot of people, they can't distinguish between the two. They say, well, if I validate you, that means I agree with you, and I don't. And I think that we can choose to understand our partner's feelings without agreeing of why they feel that way, or how they should feel that way, or how they should react because they feel that way. But just the simple validation and an acceptance of someone else's perspective, their interpretation, and their experience can be wildly empowering, and I think like you're on the right track there of maybe helping our kids get to options or choices, rather than this is what you should do or this is how to fix it. It's more about like, well, what do you think should happen next? And what do you think the outcome will be if you try that? What are some different ways that could go if you did try that? Good and bad. Okay, well, we've weighed that out. Let's talk about this option. You also said maybe you could do this. What happens if you do that? How do you think that person will react? How will you react? How will, and just what a great opportunity in conversation to explore different avenues of empathy to teach our kids these in all these different hypothetical situations and options that we're giving them the autonomy over their own reaction and control. We can also have these great conversations about what empathy looks like, what sharing feelings look like, compromise looks like, negotiation, so And I think that that is the right way to handle adults too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's a big distinguish between adults and kids in this realm. I think we all want to be validated and feel like we have empathy shown towards us, and for us to be given the autonomy to fix it ourselves with the guidance, encouragement, and support of whoever we're talking with. So
Mhm.
I think that's a great method, man. And I think that that's really how we should go about it with our partners and our kids. And something that you also brought up too, I wanted to kind of touch on is, our kids only have so much of their experience to pull on, right? Here
Mhm.
we are as these 30, 40-year olds, parents that have this whole 30, 40-year-old year experience of all of these things to pull on, where our 6-year-old kids has only got this limited span of like, what is this new thing I'm experiencing, this new set of emotions, and this thing that maybe looks or feels similar to that thing I experienced in the past, but it also feels completely new and different because I'm only 6 years old. you know and I was listening to some physicists the other day talk about some science nerd stuff, and talking about memory recall and perception and things like this. And you know when you're you hook people up to brain monitors and stuff like that, and you show them, you bring out cue cards and you show them, this is a chair, this is a bird, this is a plane,
Yeah.
and they monitor the brains of like where all that information is coming from. And 50% of it is like where the oculars is and the eyes, and they're taking in the information, and it's the perception. But the other 50% that the brain is coming up with is past experiences, what to be a chair, what a plane looks like, or a bird. So your brain is only working half from what's in front of us in the eyesight, and the other half is from the back, the past, the experiences, our experience with that. So I think we have to take that into account too, like, especially with kids, where that half of the brain that's pulling from past experiences is so limited, and everything really does feel so new to them. They need somebody like us to ask good questions and say, well, what do you think about that? What is that? Is that a bird or a chair? Why is it a bird? Why is it a chair?
Yeah. I
I don't know
really
if any of
appreciate.
that makes sense, but
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that empowerment part of it. I mean, empowerment for a kid can really, be a trajectory, and that is exactly the benefit of being a young kiddo who's trying to understand how to take charge and take responsibility for themselves in a situation. So, being able to ask questions and seeing them work through it is key. And with of course with the flip side, adults, with that is there's probably a lot of trauma attached to the idea of a victim mindset, and so it can
mhm.
be that much harder to work through and to have a breakthrough moment. So kids, man, there's so much molding opportunities to really not just manipulate them as much as it is to really kind of empower them, like you were saying. So no, I completely agree with you on that one. In fact, again, back to adults are usually the harder ones
It's
because
true, because we got all that
let's
36 years old experience. So
yeah.
maybe we're so willing to pull the past experience off rather than right in front of us, right? It's like,
Hmm.
oh, I've seen this right in front of me 1,000 times. I've experienced this traumatic thing with that thing. So, ooh, that's the one that sticks out more than what's in front of me now. I mean, with relationships too, you see this with men and women that come off of previous marriages, previous relationship. They try to start anew, but they've got all that past experience that their brain is pulling from, of all that trauma and all those bad experiences, rather than what's right here in front of them and exploring this. Oh shit, the brain's been here before. I know what this is like, so I ain't even gonna go there, explore that, or find if there's a different avenue of operating within that.
Yeah, and it's really tough too, because that trauma and those repeating experiences of that trauma and committing ourselves to the idea of it, whether we call it commitment or not. If we continue to commit to the idea that I don't have any control here, I don't have any power, there's a lot that takes place there that's really
Mm,
damaging to ourselves, and it can the cycle continuing is just as it just continues that damage. So if I'm going to commit to the idea
I
of
think
being
JJ froze.
a victim, if
Oh, there he
somebody's
is.
here. Yeah, I
Sorry
I
about
knew I
it.
I knew your internet was going in and out, but I was still aware. But if I'm committing to this victim mindset, that means if somebody is trying to challenge me, they are also against me, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
um, it is a very tough thing to reach somebody. So yeah, that validation piece is incredibly important to somebody who's experiencing the trauma. And the flip side of that, the really damaging thing that people tend to not focus on is that when I find myself constantly pointing the finger and suggesting that I'm a victim in any situation, that usually brings shame upon myself, and I
Yeah.
feel depressed. I feel hurt. I'm why is it always me? And then also the language turns into I just I'm just no good. It really is a damaging thing, and the hard thing is when you don't have that proper support around you, you will find yourself further in that hole, because some people just simply say, "Ah, I can't deal with this person. They're just a drain. They're just a Debbie Downer. It's just ridiculous. I can't stand them." So that's that I guess you could call it that anti victim mindset too,
Yeah.
where, somebody doesn't have a safe place to let it out. But if you can let it out, and the person who's receiving this from the victim mindset person is recognizing that, you don't have to say, all right, well, yep, you're just right, you're just right. Instead, again, go back to the validation piece. Like, that sounds really hard. What are some of the things that you learned? What are some of the things that you are hoping to avoid next time? Because then that gives them the opportunity to say, hey, I do have a choice here. I do have a commitment opportunity here. If you really listen for that commitment piece where they're starting to grasp onto, I'm taking action here, man, that's when that empowerment piece comes back. And with kids, like, I don't have a lot of trauma. It's not me. I'm not to blame. I don't, I'm not ashamed of who I am. I actually have all this power. I have this ability. And then 4 experiences of it going well, where somebody did something and I didn't understand it. And instead of me saying, like, I have no power here, saying, I did this really worked. Like, man, you find out this person has an opportunity to be destined to be a leader. And that's one thing I want to say too, is like, if you recognize one great effective leaders, they didn't get there by complaining. They didn't get there by pointing the finger at everybody else, saying, yeah, that person this, that person this. They said, you know what, I recognize this. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to take ownership, and I'm going to move forward with it. And hopefully in some ways that resonates with the people around me, and then we all find success in that. That's where great leadership comes from. Great leaders don't come from somebody who's always pointing the finger everywhere else.
Yeah, man. I think it's a very slippery slope in that victim mentality. Like you said, there's not a lot of power in that. There's not a lot of confidence. There's not a lot of inspiration or motivation or empowerment in that, in a statement of I am the victim or things are working against me. And it's very easy to slip into that and get comfortable in a mode of operating of everything is against me and I'm no good and I don't have any power here to get out of this.
Mm.
And I think that, like, the opposite of the victim mindset, the victor's mindset, is just as damaging, can be just as damaging. No one wants to be around somebody that's got it all figured out and that doesn't have the patience or presence to show up for their community or for their friends. And sometimes I often worry about this with our neurodivergent kids. Because I don't know about yours, JJ, but mine thinks that she knows everything. She's an 8-year old and she's the smartest 8-year old on the planet. She has all the information. She'll
Hmm.
she'll ask you a question and you'll give her the answer and then she'll tell you you're wrong right away.
Yeah.
You know, what color is this? It's blue. No, no, it's aqua blue. No, it's what's 2 plus 2? It's 4, Naomi. No, because if you have 2 plus 2 plus 1, then it would be 5. She can find the loophole in anything, man. And sometimes I have a really hard, difficult time with the apathy with her, with other friends. She wants all the empathy given to her, but she doesn't necessarily know how to give it out sometimes, and it can come across as that I'm better than you, or I know more than you, or why can't you have it figured out? And I worry about, like, how that will play out in social dynamics as we get older here,
Yeah,
you
man.
know? So that's always a question or a challenge too with neurodivergent kids, is that victim mindset, and how do we help them understand that? Because that can be a different and difficult challenge in its own, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I have those fears pretty regularly myself. Is that, what is this going to look like? For kiddo who is somebody who does have a hard time, being convinced otherwise. And then I guess, going back to that piece that we had that experience with the other father, the one week fairly recently here, where he lost it on my kiddo because he chose not to try and be curious about the situation. And just simply put, I don't think we always have to walk around with like a name tag that says, "Hi, I'm so and so, and I have ADHD or I have autism and stuff, so therefore I get special privileges." I think what that is actually, telling people is a reminder, like, I'm a human being. I deserve to be, I deserve curiosity brought to me, and I deserve to also, express who I am. And just that understanding piece is a big part of it. It's like too often people are just so afraid of something that looks a little different than themselves, and therefore they don't choose to be curious in the situation, but instead create damage by not or I guess being abrasive with it. And I've done it with kiddo, where I'm just like, I tell myself I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time for this. I'm just
Yeah,
I don't want to put
yeah.
up with this and stuff. So
We
instead
all
of
do, brother. We all have
yeah,
those
and so
moments.
and it's true. Sometimes we are pressed for time. We are pressed for we're just stressed and stuff. So
Patience.
we don't want to we want to get something clean, and we know if our kids participate in it, that cleaning time will turn from 1 hour to 4 hours, and it'll probably be just as messy on the way out. But what we're losing in that moment is that curiosity piece, that opportunity to really understand and actually work towards that empowerment and efficiency, honestly, with things. I think we're just so much focused sometimes on the impulsive part of it. So we want solutions right away, but the solution right away usually looks like a complete rejection of the other person, and then
Hmm.
sending them the message, like, either there's something wrong with me, or I'm just incapable. And then we find ourselves, regressing, or just, we're stunting ourselves to finding that empowerment piece to really take action and put into understanding, put into practice what we see in front of us, which our parents say, I just don't have the time for this. The kids say, well, they don't have time for me, and I'm difficult and stuff. And the self-esteem gets lowered, and they are not equipped with the opportunity to express what they just learned from their parents in a positive way, because they're experiencing the other thing.
I spent a lot of my life, I think, living in the victim mentality, especially when it comes to the relationship with my father and my parents. And
Mm.
I can tell you from firsthand experience that living in that kind of dynamic of like, and it's not conscious, I don't think, at the time. You never are like, I'm a victim and I'm happy being one, It comes in the form of like displacement, like we're saying, like, oh, this happened to me. Oh, this person did this to me. Oh, I got fired today. Or, life happened against me, not for me or to me, and those build up, and pretty soon you're left feeling like you don't have any power in life, like you don't have the tools, the capabilities, the motivation, the inspiration, or the confidence to deal with these hurdles as they come your way. And for me, that transpired into escapism. I felt powerless, and all these things were happening to me. Oh, my dad, has substance abuse problems or anger issues, and oh, my mom, is doing this or dating these men and not paying attention to me, or whatever, all of these psyche things that showed up in my life throughout the years, that I told our stories of myself, and I am this person because of this thing. And that was the thing, I am this person because this thing happened to me. And I didn't know how to handle all of those things that were happening to me. I didn't know who I was because of those things. So I just wanted to escape from it. And that came in alcohol and drug use and just trying to get out of the moment. Oh, I don't like this feeling. Let me run from it. Oh, I don't like this feeling and I don't know what to do about it. So let me just think about something else. Let me try to escape into something else. And that victim mentality, I think, of has a lot of responsibility into the role of the addict. I think addicts especially have this victim mentality of life is too hard and I don't have the skills to get out. So I'm going to escape into something that has control over me,
Mm.
just like life has control over me. And it was like really like, again, I've talked about my experience through AA and the curiosity there, and how it's a very like rigid structured program, right? There's 12 steps. Everybody has to hit the 12 steps. Everybody is going through those 12 steps, but those 12 steps looks different for everybody, right? Everybody
Right.
has things that they're taking accountability over. Everybody is defining what a higher power means to them, not the rest of the group. Everybody has to go and make amends to all these different people that hurt them in different ways, and that all looks different. So, though these steps are very rigid and structured, it's open for interpersonal experience and independent experience that though you can share with the rest of the group in this collaborative way, it also means something to you and your experience and your past and your perception, and how you can meld those two things together to become a new you, a new perspective of you, or who you want to grow into. And I think that just the curiosity of that and having some sort of program rigidness that was also very personalized was like really important to helping me identify what victim story I was telling myself and how to get out. And I bring this up because like I think that like if you find a good program with coaches, something that is structured but has good curiosity and questions, much like our 90-day 12-step program that you guys can sign up for and get coaching from JJ and I, this will help you in kind of uncovering those unidentified thought processes and unidentified destructive behaviors. And I think that whether you think that you're in a good place or not, whether you think that you are a victim or a victor, I think that every single one of us needs to, at some point in our life, go through a program where you're asked these hard questions that your drinking buddy or your football guy or your fantasy football friends, they aren't asking you, right? You need somebody that's like genuine, intentional, and honest about their experiences and how these things have helped change them, and help guide you through those kind of same things too. Because I think all of us play a little bit of that victim, even if we aren't aware of it, you know?
Well, the thing is, and I appreciate the idea, the word escapism that you said, because the truth is we're carrying it with us when we do that. We're running, but we're holding that backpack, and it gets heavier and heavier as soon as we start to try and numb it, dull the pain, because the pain becomes that much more obvious, especially once we've stepped outside of whatever high we're getting. It continues, and that's a dangerous thing for most people, that they don't address it. And not addressing it, like I said, escapism is not a way to actually get away from it. It's actually a way to carry it and feel that heavy burden along the journey with you. um, and so that's kind of one thing that I really wanted to like circle back around to, the idea of, when you face it, you're in some ways you're taking ownership over it. And it could be, that your parents did something to you, but it's affected you. And like you said, through that program, you are identifying that you're facing it. You're taking some ownership over yourself in it, which is powerful. It doesn't mean, something happened to me and therefore it is not part of me. Usually it is part of you. And how has it shaped you today? And what do you want to change about that? I got to take ownership over it. I got to face it. So if we escape from it, we're not really doing that. We're really just carrying it with us. So once we address that, we can start to heal. And one of the very important parts, I think, honestly, about victim mindset, whether you're doing it to help somebody else or you're helping yourself, is following up. What does it look like? What did I do different? How did I decide to take, some ownership over this? What were the opportunities? What action did I take? And how did that help me? And how did that hurt the situation? Following up with it is not saying like, like if you're in a relationship with somebody and you follow up and say, all right, so where did you screw up last time? No, it's more an opportunity. We got to follow up with this because we're trying to forge a path ahead to the next better exchange, or the next better opportunity for me to make a choice that results in a positive outcome. That's the only way we get out of that cycle of victimhood, is that we do take action. because we can't, if we're relying on everybody else to drag us down, are we going to rely on everybody else to bring us up as well? I don't think so. I think that at some point we have to actually be a participant. We got to recognize our participation in the part of it not going well and the participation of it going well, and then saying to ourselves, I'm not going to just let that go into the past and say it was what it was and I'm moving forward. No, we got to make sure we're breaking that cycle by following up with it. And we can journal out the good, we can journal out the bad, but if we're taking action with it, we're seeing some change, and we're not going to constantly point the finger and leave ourselves committed to everything else is killing me. Instead, I'm actually making myself thrive.
And I've said in the past too that one of the things that worked in my favor and was really beneficial for me was, instead of like running from these ill feelings, these negative emotions, turning towards them. Whenever I would feel, oh God, I don't like this, I want to run from this, or I want to go away from this. Those were, great green flags, instead of red ones in my life of, no, this isn't something you should run from, but rather turn towards. There's something here that needs to be uncovered. So what are the right questions to ask, rather than like finding the wrong methods to displace, distract, or escape from this feeling? And I think, like, man, I hammer this point home, I feel like, every podcast. If our listeners can get one thing from today, it's get comfortable with those feelings, right? Like,
Yeah.
those things are not there as red flag markers to run away from. Those things are there in our life because there's something to be curious about.
And I want to make a point to that before you continue, is like, either way, you're committing to something.
Yes, even by not committing to it, even by choosing to run away or ignore it, that's still a choice.
Yeah, so I honor you in that, because that is a thing that I think a lot of people do have a tendency to do, is that they commit themselves to believing that everything is as it gets them, when they're not recognizing that that is actually a choice, and that is the process of continuing to keep yourself, not motivated. It keeps you in this lock of, somebody else is in control of my life. I don't have any ability here. And then you start to internalize that, and really start to get that shame piece growing within. And that is the commitment that you don't want. But too many people who decide to point the fingers find themselves eventually in.
Yeah. And, I think that a powerful tool for me lately has been, the workouts we've been doing with Coach Ray. And I don't want to sound like a broken record there either, or be one of those stereotypical guys that are like, fitness is great for mindset, but fitness is great for mindset, guys. I don't know what to tell you. What they say is true. It does help.
It is funny that somebody made a comment to me. They said, are you guys a fitness social handle now, like on our Instagram? That's what we're doing so much of. And I said, I appreciate that question, because I do believe that we have been doing a lot of that lately. The bigger component for me in that has not been simply that I want to, promote fitness, but instead I want to promote lifestyle and well-being,
mental health.
Yeah. That's been the big one for me, is because I think this last week I admitted to a lot of the guys that look up to me in a lot of ways that I'm having a tough week and I'm not getting my exercise and stuff. It's really just kind of taking its toll. And one guy asked, like, well, what do you do in those moments for yourself? And I said, well, honestly, if I get the exercise in, that's a huge help. Yeah. I feel a lot better after I do an exercise. Yeah. So that's a big one for me. And I don't want to be taken away from that. Sometimes I choose to get less sleep, or I choose to put in extra work on something because I'm committed to, the best possible, I guess, quality in my work. I don't want to be lazy with my work, and that I could go the easy route sometimes and not really put in the best quality. But then I think that part of it suffers. The other time, this last week, I wasn't able to get to a workout for like 3 days in a row. And that was really hard for me. And I did not like that. I think, though, that I took ownership over all that situation and said, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to point the finger at everybody else here and say, I didn't get my exercise because of this or that. And so therefore I'm suffering. Instead, I said, you know what? I chose this path of trying to put out quality work. It hurt in this way. How can I, pivot? What can I do? How can I express to the people I work with, and I do, work with, um, that we can find the best possible outcome in all scenarios? Because I want work to benefit my home life. I don't want work to, hinder my home life.
Yeah.
So sometimes sacrifices are made, but you need to find a way to get back to that, right in the ship. And it's not always easy. So I just want to point that out too. Like, it's not always going to be easy. It doesn't mean like every single moment, every single scenario is an opportunity for you to have the best success. Sometimes things are going to be challenging, and we're going to have to face those things and, take the punches and then get back up again and, continue to sharpen our skills and stuff. But it doesn't mean that if something goes wrong and you come out of it and you feel a little drained and stuff, that everything was a loss.
Yeah.
That's a great indication that, all right, I can commit to an opportunity here. What is my action?
Yeah, I think that's been the most important lesson for me this round with the fitness journey, brother, is in the past I've always done these programs like 75 hard or 90-day challenge to a better body or whatever. And they've always been detrimental because there's always inevitably that one day that comes that you're sick or you have too much going on or you can't make the workout. And then you're like, well, shit, the other 87 days are now completely washed. And I don't get it. I don't get the satisfaction of making it to the 90 days or the 75, where there's been days like this that, like I said, inevitably come up where I haven't had the time to go to the gym or I just didn't make it. And because this is the long game that we're doing with Coach Ray, there's not a 90-day or a 75 finite end date. I have no problem rolling into the routine the next day. Oh shit, missed a workout yesterday. I'll make it up today. Or if I don't, fuck it. Like tomorrow's a new day. And that mindset has really kind of helped me garnish like healthy habits around this, And so yeah, I think it's been great, man, and it helps me, and it's always feels like an obstacle at the beginning of the day that I got to get through, but once I get through it, it's like, wow, this really set me up for greatness today. So I just got to keep telling myself that over and over and over again. And shit, we're talking about this victim mentality and how to break out of it and find some time for you. If you haven't figured out what that looks like yet, maybe start with working out. See what that does for you and your mindset. And if you want to, you can go over to the ADHdads.com. Go check out Cloverleaf Fitness, Coach Ray King. If you use the code ADHdads at Cloverleaf Fitness with Ray King, you'll get a super sick discount. You can get started. He'll develop the fitness plan and diet plan for you. You guys can join us on this journey. Send us videos. We'll post it on our page, and we'll get an army of fit dads together to go conquer this thing, and create better health habits for our family. So I hope to see you guys there. I hope you take advantage of that. I hope you join us on that journey because, I know I sound like a broken record, and you probably heard this on 1,000 other podcasts about how fitness can help change your mentality and your mindset. I'm just going to echo that, man, because I definitely, from personal experience, am feeling the benefits from that and the changes that it's making in my emotions, my psyche, and my physical actions throughout the day. So go take advantage of that, man. ADHdads.com, code ADHdads at Cloverleaf Fitness with Ray King. Hope to see you there. And glad you guys listened today. If you have any questions about today's podcast, you can always reach out to us at contact@theadhdads.com or go to our website. I've mentioned 100 times here already, but we always appreciate the support. We always appreciate you guys listening and hope you get as much from listening as we do in recording this. So until next time, I'm your host, CJ.
And I'm JJ.
And this has been the ADH Dads. See you next time.